Have you figured out what your slow travel years are actually for? Not where you want to go, not what country looks good on a spreadsheet, but what kind of life you're trying to build once you finally have your freedom. Guatemala gave me 3 questions that changed my answer, and they may help you define yours. In 2019, this was not a retirement scouting trip. I was not comparing visas. I was not testing neighborhoods. I was not calculating the cost of living. I was still years away from retirement. I was just a GIS coordinator who needed to climb something. And somewhere between an erupting volcano, 3-day mountain traverse, a traditional Mayan sauna, and watching El Fuego light up the night sky, I began to understand what I wanted the next chapter of my life to contain. Not where I wanted to live, how I wanted to live. This is my story, but the 3 questions inside it are yours. 1 question: what makes you fully present? The trip began for me a hike up to Lake Tikal, a volcanic crater sacred to the local Mayan communities. It was a beautiful climb through cloud forest and mist. It reminded me of something I would need to remember as I got older. I did not have to be the fastest person on the mountain. I did not have to be the strongest. I only had to keep moving. There is a temptation as we age to measure ourselves against what we could do once in the past. How fast we were, how far we could walk, how easily the body recovered. But maybe the better question is not whether we can still do everything. Maybe the better question is this: are we still willing to ask something meaningful of ourselves? A good next chapter does not have to prove that you are still young. It should remind you that you are still alive. The next morning began at 5 o'clock. Santa Maria volcano. The climb was steep, and one of the other hikers began to struggle. My guide stayed behind with her and told me to continue. He would catch up. So I reached the summit alone. Below Santa Maria sits Santiaguito, one of Guatemala's most active volcano complexes. I knew it was there. I knew an eruption was possible, but knowing that something might happen is very different from sitting alone on a mountain when it does. The ground rumbled, then the ash rose, and my first thought was not philosophical. It was very simple. Pay attention. Whatever you were thinking about before this moment, stop. This is real. That became the first question. What experiences make everything else go quiet? For you, it may not be an erupting volcano. It may be building something, learning a language, helping someone, making music, walking alone, being with people who matter, or waking up somewhere that makes you curious again. Pay attention to the moments when you feel completely awake. They are not interruptions from your real life. They are clues about what your real life may need more of. Question 2. What pace lets you notice your life? Days later, I began a 3-day traverse from Zia to Lake Aradan. This was where slow travel stopped being an idea and became something I could feel. You move through the farmland and small villages. You stop in places that do not have a TripAdvisor rating. The pace is set by your legs, not an itinerary. And when you travel that slowly, you begin noticing different things. People working, children walking home, conversations you cannot understand, the sound of a village waking up. The difference between passing through a place and being present inside it. Many of us spend our working lives moving at a pace we are never consciously choosing. There are meetings, there's deadlines, there's commutes, there's responsibilities. Then we reach retirement and assume that changing our location will automatically change our life. But we can rush through retirement too. We can collect countries, attractions, and photographs while remaining just as distracted as we were at home. So the question is not simply where do you want to go? It is this: what pace would allow you to notice your own life again? At one point during that traverse, a group of teenagers approached us carrying machetes. They began demanding money. For a few moments, the situation felt genuinely uncertain, but our lead guide recognized them. He told them, "I know which village you are from. I know your mothers. Do you want them to know what you are doing?" That ended it, and we continued walking. What stayed with me was not the threat, it was the value of being with someone who understood the community, the language, and the people. Adventure does not require recklessness, and independence does not mean pretending we no longer need anyone. Sometimes the intelligent decision is to trust someone who understands the ground better than we do. It might be a guide, a local friend, a language teacher, a doctor, someone who has already faced the decision you are confronting. We spend decades trying to become self-sufficient, but a meaningful next chapter may also require humility to admit where our own map ends. Later in the traverse, we stopped at a traditional Mayan sauna. I do not have footage of it. I was too busy being inside it. It was a low stone structure heated by fire and hot rocks. You crawl inside. It is dark and close. It smells of smoke, stone, and earth. And for a while, you simply sit there and exist. That is something travel rarely advertises. Some of the best moments are the ones you never photograph. And maybe that gives us another useful test. Would the life you are planning still feel meaningful if nobody ever saw it? No photographs, no social media, no audience applauding the decision. If the answer is yes, you may be getting closer to something that is genuinely yours. Question 3. What are you no longer willing to postpone? Day 8. Akiatenga. You climb up Akiatenga to watch its neighbor El Fuego erupt. And El Fuego does not disappoint. We sat around a fire that night, strangers who had become trail companions by hour 6. And across the valley, El Fuego performed all night. I looked around the campfire. I was probably 20 years older than the next oldest person there, and I had never felt more certain that I was exactly where I belonged. Many of the people around me were digital nomads, or long-term travelers themselves. They had already chosen versions of life I was still imagining. I was not envious. I was not impatient. I finally understood what I wanted. That was the shift. Before Guatemala, retirement was something I was planning for. After Guatemala, it became something I was moving towards, and that leads to the most uncomfortable question. What part of your life have you kept postponing? Because you assume there will always be more time. Your body may still be capable today, the people you love may still be here, the opportunity may still be open, but none of those things comes with a permanent reservation. That does not mean abandoning responsibility. It does not mean making reckless decisions because the clock is ticking. It means recognizing that delay is also a decision. And eventually, repeatedly postponing the life you want becomes choosing not to live it. The trip ended in Tikal, Maya temples rising above the Peten jungle. Some places do not need much narration. They ask you to become quiet. Standing above the jungle canopy, I thought about time differently. You do not need a perfect plan for the next 30 years. You need direction that feels like your own. I returned from Guatemala and went back to my desk. Stable career, stable income, responsible decisions. From the outside, nothing had changed, but I knew what it felt like to be fully present in an uncomfortable place. I knew what my body could still do when I asked something difficult of it. And I knew the life I kept postponing was no longer an abstraction. I'd spent 13 days living inside a version of it. Guatemala did not give me a retirement plan. It gave me the rules that any plan would have to satisfy. Physical challenge, slow travel, real community, enough uncertainty to keep me awake, and enough humility to accept help from other people who understand the ground better than I do. Your rules will probably be different, but you can begin finding them with the same 3 questions. What makes you fully present? What pace lets me notice my own life? What am I no longer willing to postpone? Do not rush to answers. Look for patterns. Those patterns may tell you more than any other ranking of affordable countries or another list of retirement destinations. Guatemala did not tell me exactly where to go. It showed me what I was looking for.